So, deep apologies. This is CS from DWP, Warframe Wiki Wednesday, talking about the status effects, and my internet had cut off. But I was talking about the Empyrean status effects. I left off at puncture, which causes plasma. This reduces their shields and armor, stacked similarly to corrosive procs. For slash, this converts to particle. Ships receive 7.5 increased damage, 7.5% increased damage, and that stacks multiplicative. So 7.5, and then whatever that number is, it does another 7.5% of that, so on and so forth. For cold, this is called frost. It immobilizes the ships. They're disabled and they basically slow down and come to a complete stop. Doesn't say how long it lasts for. If I was to take a guess, I'm going to say 6 seconds. From my experience, it seems around that number, roughly. For electricity, this converts to ionic. Ships spiral erratically for 6 seconds. Heat converts to incendiary, which is sear. This ships receive damage over time for 6 seconds. And for toxin, this converts to chem, which basically is like the radiation proc of Railjack. It causes them to attack the closest enemy, and it can actually flip the PvP PvE attack polarity, friendly fire. Basically, the polarity of friendly fire. So, you know, they basically can attack everything. Basically, it's kind of weird. You got to kind of experiment with it. By the way, arc guns, they receive a 95% damage reduction when dealing damage in the Railjack, or in Railjack, which is odd, but that's okay. So, and there's a source that cited. Not going to go over status chance too much, but just know that now you can reach much higher than 100%. If anybody's wondering why the comb doesn't show a per pellet, it's because it has a variable pellet count. Meaning that it starts off with 1 pellet count, which is 8, and then it eventually ramps up to 12. So if anything, you just have a complete list of stats that's just way too convoluted, and I'm not entirely sure anybody would really want that, so they just lumped it all. They just left the comb pretty much the same. Even though they still buffed the status chance 3 times. So they did that. They did do that to all the shotgun weapons. We're gonna skip multi-shot and all that good jazz. We're going to skip the status mods. Oh, by the way, speaking of mods, the mods got buffed, all of which got buffed to 90%. So now that all that is pretty much covered, and when I say status mods, let me just kind of wrap this up. When I say the base status mods, it's things like rifle amplitude, it's all 90%. So now let's talk about some interesting parts about this status situation. So as you can see, we got the Ignis Wraith, and I have 84.1% status. Now what's interesting about heat is that on one hand, I actually thought that it had a cap to it, but it actually doesn't have a cap to it. There is no cap to heat. Now I got this up to 1,000 at one point, but I'm just going to shoot this for an extended period of time, and as you can see, we're already at 100, and then eventually we'll get to 200, 300, 400, so on and so forth. And your heat damage procs will get bigger, and it'll be reflected in the amount of damage that proc itself is doing. Now it's not going to show much on this particular enemy, but those procs do get kind of massive. So as you can see, we're up at 321, and this literally can just keep going up. Like it doesn't stop. It just keeps going. 358. Yeah, I got to like 1,500 earlier before it died or something like that. So you can get up pretty high. Also, statuses. I'm not sure when this changed. Maybe I missed it or something. But what used to happen is if you had a enemy on fire and then you hit them with a toxin proc, right? Well, that's gas. But let me switch it back to toxin. Give me one moment. I'm going to switch this out for whatever that one is. Is that it? Status duration? Yeah. So I have the duration mods on for a little test I'm going to be doing here in a second. So not a test, but for something I want to show you. So anyway, if you hit somebody with heat and then you hit them with toxin, it used to convert to gas, but now it doesn't. Is this good or bad? It's actually neither good nor bad. So it's bad in regards to situations like frost. With, like, if you had frost and toxic lad, like if you had frost and sarin on the map, it wouldn't convert to viral. which is a good thing and a bad thing. But the good part about it is that we have things like condition overload, which actually benefits from this. So let's basically kind of show you real quick. So I can put heat on, I can put toxic on, and then I could proceed to hit with viral and radiation. Now it's really slow or whatever, but if we look at these procs, we're gonna have some IPS, some toxins, some heat, some viral, some radiation, right? Why is that a big deal? Well, let me show you why it's a big deal. So because they don't combine anymore, if you look at it mathematically, and actually it can get even more insane. I'll show you in a moment. So what we have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 procs, which is 600 additional damage from condition overload, right? 600 plus an additional 2 procs is basically plus an additional 240 damage, which now we're looking at 840 damage, right? Now, if you mess around and you do something like you bring a frost into the mix who can inflict cold damage, now you're looking at like an amount of procs that's probably unnecessary. So let's say I'm gonna go through what we're working with here in a moment. But so we got frost. Let me just change his color. So what we're gonna end up with actually is we're gonna end up with 8 of these guys. So we're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus heat, cold, and toxin, right? So what we should end up with at that point is we should end with 960 additional damage. Now, I'm not sure about you guys, but 960 additional damage is kind of out there, right? So what does that look like? Well, let's see what it looks like. So we know how fast they die now. Let me put that into context real quick. I'm going to grab my trusty Cronin, and it's my run-of-the-mill Cronin that I use all the time, and I'm gonna freeze him and hit him basically. Alright, so that's how fast the Cronin kills. I don't even know, now I think about it, that was probably a horrible thing to do. Let me pull out the Lucera. I'm so sorry about that, guys. I should have did that with the Lucera. So let me do it before adding those additional damage types. Actually, let's not freeze them. So I'm just gonna swing and let's see how long it takes for them to die. Or at least one. All right, there's one. There's 2. It's taking a little while. So they take a little while to kill, right? Well, it's not gonna be like a crazy amount, but just think in terms of we're going from our traditionally getting 600 damage for the most part to 960 damage. So now I know it's kind of a lot of work and all this, but just for example's sake, so I got some status duration on this, so that's gonna be there for a while. I got some toxin I'm throwing in the mix, right? This is, let's say the team's doing this. Just gonna throw that on for extra spice. Now we should be getting a ton more damage. Yep, they're dropping pretty quick now. Alright, so it's not, like I said, it's not a ton more damage, but it adds up after a while. So so that is actually a really good thing now. I just say it's a really good thing. Now, since we're talking status effects, I did want to talk about the Lucera for a moment. This weapon has a base status chance of 45%. It does have a 5% crit chance, so you're not going to be doing anything crazy. But think of this weapon kind of like the old Legion in a way, because the Legion used to have a 5% crit chance, so we're kind of in that realm. It still gets crits, just not as often, and it will proc Berserker, so don't be afraid to put it on there if you want to use this weapon. One thing to note, though, is even though these status changes are huge, as we all know, right? These status changes are absolutely, cowabunga huge. This is the build I'm working with. You guys know I use Healing Return right here. So if anything, I would have Healing Return right here, but we're using our typical Viral Heat, Condition Overload, Weeping Wounds, Berserker. Blood Rush might be something we might be able to consider, I guess, but I feel like that would work a lot better. and we're actually going to be testing this against a Cronin with Weeping Wounds and seeing which one is faster. And this is because it's going to be tested against a crit weapon, and I'm going to be taking this off, right? And I'll leave Blood Rush on. Actually, we'll just use the Cronin, for example. So we're going to run a Weeping Wounds test, and then we're going to run a Blood Rush test. So on this particular weapon, we're going to be running Viral Heat. Where is Heat? Where is Heat? There it goes. So we're running Viral Heat, and we have a 74% base status chance. We got a little bit more crit in there. That's fine. But what we got is Weeping Wounds, and then we're going to put on Blood Rush after that and see which one is the benefactor. Now this is, or not benefactor, but see which one is more beneficial to use. Keep in mind, this is going to be based on a per weapon basis. Some weapons will benefit from crit more than status. Some weapons will benefit from status more than crit. Not just because they have a high crit chance, but it's just the way the weapons work. Status and slash effects and attack speed, so on and so forth. For this, I am going to be freezing them both times so they stay in place, but here we go. So this is Weeping Wounds. Alright, so that is with an additional 450% status chance. What we should be looking at is roughly it's like a little over 300% status chance or something like that with, 200% status chance with that weapon. Compared to the Lucera, which has a 300% status chance with Weeping Wounds. Now, we're going to switch to Blood Rush, and we're going to see how that fares in the mix. Now, we still have a 74% status chance, and we're still dealing with the stacking, so on and so forth. But we want to see, does crit still matter, or are we in a craze, or what? So here we go. It felt faster. To me, it felt a lot faster. To me, it felt a lot faster. Now, keep in mind with crit builds, basically what you would do is you would switch this out for Organ Shatter, and now you have a crit build. Whereas when you're going status, you're gonna, of course, you want to stack your Volcanic Heat. But on this one, just for example's sake, we're gonna do a true crit, and then I'll go back to Weeping Wounds just so we have like a proper test, I guess is the best way I can put it, and I'll check your comments out in just a moment. All right, cool. Now let's go to status and see what that looks like. And this is not to bunk or debunk any type of beliefs out there. If you want to use Weeping Wounds, go for it. I personally use it myself. I think it's a great way to go. I've been using it for a long time, actually. I love Weeping Wounds, but that doesn't mean just go all the way knee deep into status. You still have to have a balance between what you're doing, because getting only status on like a comb ribbon is not going to solve all your issues. It's definitely going to kill, but it may not necessarily solve all your issues. So actually that seemed faster that time. All right, cool. So we kind of see where we're going here. All right, cool. So on one hand, we had a roughly 200 and some % status chance. On the other hand, we had a 74% status chance. And they seemed, give or take, I don't know, they seemed kind of in the same realm, I guess. So you can kind of go either way. Me personally, I do recommend doing both if you're going to do it, which is why I have this here. And actually my index build either has all crit or I'll go all status, but this is for the index. If I was doing not the index, that's what this build is for. Is for when I'm not doing the index. I actually recommend going both. And just letting the over 100% status kind of be a byproduct of your build. That's what I personally recommend. But that is that. And let me see if there are any questions in the chat in regards to status effects. Sorry for the disconnect earlier. That video should be up at this point, covering what they are now. And yes, heat is kind of godlike. You do have to get a lot of procs for it to really have kind of a mainstay. But the more statuses you have on a weapon, the better. Let me see if I can get this thing going. There's some weird internet issues happening right now. I do apologize. Let me just use my phone. Boom, boom. I swear I have the most patient, like, people who follow this channel. I swear, you guys are awesome. Like, for real, for real. Let's see. And there's chat. What's up, Blood Young? It's good. It's way more damage, yeah. The 2 and the 4th were the most damage, yeah. So the more status you have, the more damage. Well, so the more so basically the way it works is it's kind of, it really is kind of dependent on your element. So I think if you're going, let me show you this. So if you have the Lacera, for example, which has a ton of status, this is what kind of led me to you want to build a balance, right? It's because if you take the Lacera, right, which has the highest status chance of all melee weapons, right, and you put weeping wounds, condition overload, and your status is on there, right? What ends up happening is it doesn't necessarily kill as fast. It kills fast, but it doesn't necessarily like kill as fast just because it has a high status, right? You still need some damage and crit in there somewhere. So just because I can hit a super high status chance, it's gonna kill fast, yes. But just because it's got a super high status doesn't mean it's gonna necessarily kill as fast as, you know, let's say a Nakana Prime or something, right? So, you know, basically what I'm saying is don't be like, and you really got to try it out for yourself. I mean, I could be wrong. This is really just me kind of speculating, I guess, right? Put it up against like a weapon like, not 3000. I'm not doing 300% status, but the weapon still performs, in my opinion, it performs better. I could be wrong, but it just feels like it does. So that's what I'm saying. You don't need 300% status if you want to kill faster. You just have to be strategic in your approach when you're putting together whatever build you're trying to. And you know, I think the best way to start in regards to this status thing is pick the first off you got to have fun. So you got to find a weapon that you like, right? And then once you find the weapon that you like, how do you min-max that weapon, basically? So this status change, though, is working for the benefit of all of us. So if you take a weapon like, let's say, let's just say the Lacera, right? You take something like the Lacera. Now, I think there's another Lacera coming out. I'm anticipating a crit boost in it, which is exactly why I have this ribbon right here, just waiting for that thing to drop. But basically, much into that weapon as far as status types as possible to really maximize the damage, right? Because you can't maximize on the crit. You know what I mean? Now, if there was a situation like the Guandao, let's say a weapon was pretty much all crit, like the, I don't have it, but ton of slash. Unfortunately, you're still going to want to use weeping wounds, or you might want to at least try weeping wounds on it. Like I said, I don't have it, so I don't have a crit chance. Actually, I have a crit chance that's pretty low. Let me get my Dokram. So the Dokram has a really low crit chance of 10%. But even with something like this, I would still recommend weeping wounds on it. Like I still run weeping wounds on this weapon. This is my pre-update build. I was using this build pre-update, and I got the internet thing. I don't know what's gonna. I apologize for my internet, but the more status, the better. Yes, but don't forget about crit. Is basically what I'm saying. I hope that helps. Don't forget about damage and crit, and just do all status. It's gonna work, yes. It will kill, yes, but don't forget about the other factors, because there's attack speed, there's attack speed. All this contributes to damage. You have attack speed, you have your status chance, you have your crit, and then you have your crit damage, right? And then your regular damage. So just don't forget those parts when you're creating your build and balance it to the way that you feel is appropriate for the way that you play. Does that? I hope that helps. So anyway, without further ado, this basically, or the status effects portion of Warframe Wiki Wednesday. Woo! All right, cool. And then I guess I'll throw up another stream to take any questions or anything like that. So, or we could just kind of diddle around with some status effects and whatnot, and I'll show you guys at least what I found for the most part. So anyway, if you like the video, or videos in this case, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next piece of content. Once again, deep apologies for that little internet snafu, a couple of internet snafus. I'm kind of working on it. I'm having a kind of bounce between the two. But I'll see you guys in the next piece of content. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later. All right. Peace. Woo!